Located in the sun-scorched deserts of central Arizona is the menacingly named Superstition Wilderness. It is a massive swath of jagged, volcanic peaks and unforgiving heat that virtually nobody lives inside of. To make that point crystal clear, consider the following. The city of Phoenix has a population of over 1.6 million people and is a sprawling modern metropolis. The Superstition Mountains sit just to the east, looming over the city, yet they remain a 160,000-acre fortress of solitude that has claimed more lives than almost any other wilderness area in the American Southwest. In addition to being this huge and mostly blistering space, the Superstition Mountains are almost completely wild. Think rattlesnakes, mountain lions, sudden flash floods, and sheer cliffs that drop thousands of feet into rocky canyons. Even for highly experienced outdoorsmen and women, the Superstitions can be a truly hazardous place. And within this truly hazardous place, there is one legend that is the most hazardous, and it drives people right into the heart of the mountains. It's the legend of the lost Dutchman's gold mine. Since the late 1800s, this area has been made into a sort of mecca for treasure hunters. But don't let that fool you. This is not some tourist trap where you buy a ticket and take a tour. There are no roads that lead to the mine. Nobody even knows exactly where it is. The only way you can look for it is by hiking into a labyrinth of canyons where temperatures routinely top 110 degrees. But for those able and willing to make the effort to get inside these mountains, you have the opportunity to find a fortune unparalleled in American history. However, there is a catch. The mountains are said to be cursed. According to the Apache people who have lived in the region for centuries, the Superstition Mountains are the home of the Thunder God and the entrance to the underworld. They believe the area is sacred and dangerous, inhabited by little people and dark spirits that protect the land. They warned the early Spanish explorers that if they dared to take gold from the mountain would take their souls. And while this just sounds like folklore, and it might very well be that that's all it is, folklore, starting in the mid-1800s, some very strange things started happening in the Superstition Mountains that were not folklore. These things happened, and they were horrifying. In 1848, a Mexican family named the Peraltas reportedly found the gold. They mined it and loaded it onto mules to take it back to Mexico. But just as they were preparing to leave, they were ambushed. According to the legend, the Apaches descended on them, and in a narrow canyon, they massacred the entire party. The gold was spilled onto the canyon floor, and the bodies were left to rot. For years afterward, hikers would find the bleached bones of the mules and the men, and the area became known as the massacre grounds, but the gold was never recovered. Now, fast forward to 1931, an amateur treasure hunter named Adolph Ruth arrived in Arizona from Washington, D.C. He was an older man, he had a bad leg, and he wasn't particularly fit, but he had something no one else had, a map. He claimed his map was authentic and led directly to the lost Peralta mine. Despite warnings from local ranchers and the authorities that the mountains were treacherous and that he shouldn't go in alone, Ruth was determined. He hiked into the wilderness, confident he would be back in a few weeks. Weeks turned into a month, and Adolph Ruth did not return. A massive search party was launched. They scoured the canyons, they looked in the caves, but the terrain was so difficult that they found nothing. It was as if the mountains had just swallowed him whole. 6 months later, an archaeological expedition was deep in the mountains, miles away from where Ruth was supposed to be, when they found something disturbing. Resting near a palo verde tree was a human skull. There was no body attached to it, just the skull. And strangely, the skull had 2 holes in it that looked suspiciously like bullet holes. The expedition team called in the authorities, and through dental records, they confirmed it was Adolph Ruth. But here is where it gets truly bizarre. About a quarter of a mile away from where the skull was found, they discovered the rest of Ruth's body. He was fully clothed, and in his pocket was his checkbook and a pistol that had not been fired. But the map to the gold was gone. The police conducted an investigation, and incredibly, they ruled the death a suicide or an accident caused by heat stroke. They claimed animals must have carried the head away, but people weren't buying it. How does a man commit suicide by shooting himself in the head twice? And then how does his head end up a quarter mile away from his body? And where did the map go? Just like in the Nahanni Valley, people began to whisper that there was something evil lurking in those mountains. A few years later, in the 1940s, a prospector named James A. Cravey decided he was going to outsmart the mountains. He wasn't going to hike in. He hired a helicopter to fly him into a remote box canyon deep in the Superstitions. He had the pilot drop him off with supplies, intending to hike out with the gold. He never hiked out. When the pilot returned to check on him, the camp was empty. Months later, hikers found Cravey's body. Just like Adolph Ruth, his head had been severed from his body. It was found several feet away, leading many to believe that the curse of the Dutchman was actually a very real, very human killer or something else entirely. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the body count continued to rise. In 1961, a prospector named Jay Clapp went missing. 3 years later, his headless skeleton was discovered. Again, the police couldn't explain it, and again, the public was terrified. It seemed that anyone who got too close to finding the gold met a violent, gruesome end. Even in modern times, the Superstition Mountains continued to claim lives. In 2010, 3 gold seekers, Curtis Merworth, Ardian Charles, and Malcolm Meeks, headed into the mountains during the blistering heat of July. They were looking for the lost Dutchman's gold. They parked their car at a trailhead, walked into the wilderness, and vanished. A massive search and rescue operation was launched, but the heat was so intense that the searchers themselves were at risk of dying. For 6 months, there was no sign of the 3 men. Then, in January 2011, their skeletal remains were found scattered in a rugged canyon. There was no gold, no map, and no clear indication of exactly what had happened in their final moments, other than the brutal reality of the desert heat. To this day, people report seeing strange lights hovering over the peaks at night. Hikers claim to hear footsteps following them when no one is there. And despite the dozens of deaths, the disappearances, and the decapitations, people still go. They pack their bags, they grab their maps, and they head into the Superstition Mountains, convinced they will be the ones to break the curse. But the truth is, the mountains are massive, they are wild, and they are incredibly good at keeping their secrets. Whether it is the heat, a human killer, or the Thunder God himself, something in that wilderness does not want visitors, and nobody knows exactly what it is. So, what do you think is truly hiding in those canyons? Is it the Apache Thunder God, a ruthless human killer protecting the gold, or just the unforgiving heat? Let me know your theory in the comments below. I read them all. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the unexplained, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us uncover more mysteries like this one. And finally, if you have your own strange story, whether it's a glitch in the matrix, a paranormal experience, or a brush with the unexplainable, I want to hear it. Email your story to mycreepyencounter@gmail.com, and it might be featured in a future video. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.